In the dawn of time and life in the universe, Karak, also known as the first tree of knowledge, was planted by the Creator, keeper and guardian of time and space. From this tree, life in the form of the demigods was created, and the one known as the Great Evil was also an offspring of the Karak. He was the smallest out of all of his siblings, and the very thought of that angered him. Out of rage and jealousy, he rejected the very thought of existence, declared life a pain, and sought to destroy everything and all of reality. He started his conquest first by devouring the essence of his siblings, killing anyone who refused or tried to resist his powerful might, until he achieved enough strength to go against the Creator. With the essence of his siblings now in his possession, he vowed to destroy the tree, the Creator, and creation, consume or subjugate all other gods to his will, and name himself the King of Darkness below. All who witnessed the great king's conquest offered close to nothing in terms of resistance. No man nor God could stop the Great Evil. Although he had all the powers needed to take out all of the creation, it still didn't feel enough. He wanted more, but no other besides being himself could give him the essence he desired. So, his best bet was to create more of an essence through the offspring of his subjugated goddess, Sana, who he forcibly made his wife, and with whom he served 7 daughters on. But unfortunately for Sana, she died shortly after giving birth to them, which led the king to take all 7 of her daughters as his new brides. The Great Darkness was so powerful that even the darkest of demigods fell to his will, while the older deities agreed to follow him, among which is Jesser, Goron, the Hangman, Moloch, the White Wolf, and the Unseelie Queen. At the time, no one knew his real name. Even now, we still don't know who he is. But all we know is, the Great Evil is in fact the one we now refer to as the Scarlet King. Greetings, my friend, and welcome to probably the Foundation's most complicated subject, SCP-001, who also goes by the name of the Scarlet King. Oddly enough, throughout the history of humanity and existence itself, he has gone by many names, some of which are the Great Evil, Harak, Night-Hagar, King of the Darkness Below, Shormash-Ardal, Crimson Khan, Red Shah, the Crimson Monarch, the King who rose from the Bleeding, Lord of the Throne of Despair, Defiller of Words, PTE 616 Mendez Ex Machina, the Red God, SCP 2317K, and of course, SCP-001. The subject belongs to the Keter Safe class. I'll explain what I mean by that later. So, moving on. The subject's special containment procedure is as directed by the recent investigations of Dr. Robert Montauk suggests that the Foundation is not required to take any action in regards to the subject's containment, further stating that SCP-001 is functionally self-containing, and there is in fact an interface in this self-containment. The result could be the end of humanity. Dr. Montauk also advised that no one should be given any authorization to engage in matters related to SCP-001, with the exception of some SCP anomalies already in Foundation containment that are somewhat related to the subject. Reason being, the sent person might be misled by the Scarlet King to reveal the truth about his containment. A truth the Scarlet King must never know the benefit of mankind. His request was granted, with the exception that only members of the O5 committee were allowed anywhere near his supposed containment. Although Dr. Montauk was tasked with finding out everything there is to know about SCP-001, he, however, wasn't really able to give a real description on what or how the Scarlet King looked like. The only information he could get were all either from assumption, past history, or his brother's dreams, in which he described the Scarlet King as a red humanoid-like entity, one of immense size, with a crown on his head, which signifies royalty, considering the fact that he calls himself the King of Darkness Below. And although he isn't certain of the description, it does make sense, considering that the name given to him has a word closely related to the color red, as in crimson, and a word that is related to royalty. He also stated that SCP-001 currently exists in several alternate dimensions simultaneously, but he's also, however, unable to enter the Prime Dimension. At least, that is what he believes anyway. However, despite the fact that he can gain entry into our reality at any time he so wishes, it is believed that the Scarlet King has made several attempts to gain entry in the last 300 years, which prompted him to the belief that he can only gain entry if summoned by beings in that reality. So all he has to do is wait. In my opinion, we should all be grateful for whomever or whatever gave him that idea, because it basically bought humanity more years to at least figure out what we're up against. And though the entity isn't in our prime reality, its physical and mental properties still have a strong influence on a number of individuals and events within our reality. The Foundation has also kept knowledge of SCP-001's existence away from anyone below a level 4 personnel. They do so by giving everyone the idea that SCP-2317 is in fact the Scarlet King, as a means to downgrade the threat level of the subject and also to somewhat contain the grief. Although the hypotheses insist that there is absolutely no way SCP-2317 is anything more than a single aspect of SCP-001, the truth of that belief remains unknown. And despite the large amount of data I managed to get my hands on from the SCP Foundation, I wasn't able to get an exact date of discovery for SCP-001. At first, my best guess was that the data was destroyed during the 1889 Snarling Coup, along with several archives worth of data concerning the SCP Foundation's origin. This reason alone could have been a major setback in the tracking of various timestamps on when he was first sighted. But after looking through several other investigations on this subject, I no longer see that as the case. Why, you may ask? Well, considering the fact that the SCP Foundation didn't until recently consider him worthy of an in-depth investigation makes me believe his discovery was more recent. Another important piece of information I found had to do with the recent rise of some occultic groups who have tasked themselves with the sole aim of bringing the Scarlet King to our dimension. It is also a possibility that similar groups have existed for years, even long before the discovery of the SCP Foundation. It could be that they are all descended from one another. Some of these groups, like the Children of the Scarlet King and End of Time, have already made their intentions known to the SCP Foundation, with the most recent of these events occurred in January 2018 with the Children of the Scarlet King. But fortunately, their efforts was elated by a joint operation between the Global Occult Correlation and the SCP Foundation, by which the leader of the group, who goes by the name Depeche Spivak, was captured and placed under the SCP custody under the designation POL 3172. After several interviews between Dr. Monotuck and POL 3172, the Foundation concluded that even though the rituals performed by followers of SCP-001 seems rather occultic in nature, they however pose no real threat to humanity. Looking back at recordings between Dr. Monotuck and POL 3172. Do you know why I'm here? I don't know, so tell me, why are you here? You and your group made an attempt to bring SCP-001 to our dimension, and I want to know why. We didn't make an attempt. We are just following the tradition of our cult. Are you trying to say the group before you is the main source of the connection between you and SCP-001? And the group before them. And the group before them. And so on, and so... So you think this is funny? Extinction of the human race is suddenly a joke to you. You call it extinction. I call it salvation. One that with or without me, my family is going to make happen. Immediately after this interview, Dr. Monotuck requested that the SCP Foundation treat these groups as a serious threat, and they must all be found and contained. His request was declined in the end, shortly before the SCP released their statement insisting that the group is a level 0 threat to humanity. A few months after the capture of POL 3172, Dr. Montauk reported to the Foundation that his brother went missing, claiming that he feels the children of the Scarlet King are behind it. He also claimed that there could be a possible link with SCP-001 involved, but his report was dismissed under the note that the Foundation cannot waste valuable resources for a missing persons case. Contact your local police after 48 hours have gone by. Out of sheer grief and anger, Dr. Montauk sought to take out his revenge on the Scarlet King in the only way he saw possible. Procedure 110 Montauk. On paper, Dr. Montauk claimed the procedure was a means to keep the Seventh Bride, or SCP-231-7, from having the Scarlet King's child by making use of a means to stop her from existing. But in reality, the project itself is an inhumane and brutal experience for anyone. After seeing the procedures with my own eyes, I honestly don't think going into details would be necessary. But the bottom line is, it was effective. This whole ordeal, although it was a bit traumatic for me to handle at first, but after accepting these facts, some questions did prompt in my head. First of all, why exactly did the Scarlet King or his followers kidnap Dr. Montauk's brother? Well, to answer that question, I need to know who he really was, and if he somehow had relations with the SCP Foundation. Though some strategic means and sheer luck, I was able to get my hands on the answer to all of my questions. Dr. Montauk's journal. This was probably one of the biggest sources of information on SCP-001 that I've ever gotten my hands on. It also contained 3 valuable pieces of information necessary for my investigation. The first being the probability that the Scarlet King was created through the dreams of Jacob Montauk, who is in fact Dr. Robert Montauk's brother. The second had to do with the 7 brides, Procedure 110 Montauk, and why it was stopped. And the third talked about SCP-2317. It also contained details of some previous experiments, including SCP-001. This actually brings us back to why it was also regarded as a safe class. It's based on the results from the investigation done by Dr. Montauk himself. Because you see, for years following his discovery, the Scarlet King has been dubbed probably the greatest Keter class member in history. But after the investigations done by Montauk, the Foundation and the O5 Council both agreed that the Scarlet King will not be able to break the rift into our reality. And as long as no one tells him the truth about our reality, then there really is no cause for alarm, so they think. Technically, all I can deduce from this whole policy the O5 Council passed in SCP-001 is they are basically accepting the belief that what you don't know won't hurt you. But in this case, I'd say our survival is based on a 50-50 chance that the Scarlet King figures out the truth for himself. Till then, all we can do is hope. And of course, let's not forget about the followers of the Scarlet King and Jacob Montauk's involvement in this. Could he be a crucial element in the Scarlet King's entity? Or has he been the missing piece all along? I'll need more time to answer these questions, but while I'm at it, I'll need your help answering these questions. What do you think about the Scarlet King? Are his followers as dangerous as Montauk claims? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you wish to see my take on the subject. Where is he?